Between elytras, ender teleportation, and super fast purebred horses, traveling in Minecraft has become pretty boring. But around a year ago, I had an idea that would completely change the course of my hardcore world. When Mojang released 1.21, they sneakily added in this feature. Okay, now I know this doesn't seem like much, but with this small tweak, we can now travel seamlessly through nether portals while riding minecarts, allowing me to build a complicated network of super fast railways that connect up my entire hardcore world. So since then, I've been working to transform the roof of my nether from a barren bedrock wasteland into an industrial hellscape. So today, we're going to be massively expanding the area with towering mountains, dozens of custom trees, and to top it all off, a post-apocalyptic Ferris wheel. So this area right behind my big fat head is where we're going to be working today in this big old empty plot, the south side of our tracks here. Okay, let's break down this project into some simple steps. Step 1, we need to do some resource grinding. And there is a lot. Step 2 is terraforming, and that'll essentially just act as our canvas to then put on for step 3, which is going to be our reforestation. We're going to be building a whole hell of a lot of trees. And then step 4 is to build that awesome Ferris wheel that you see in the thumbnail. Hopefully breaking this down into steps will make it a little bit easier to follow along. So let's get started on that resource grind, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the inspiration. Now, for this project, I need to gather an absurd amount of moss and moss carpet, and my current moss farm inside this building will simply not cut it. It breaks all the time, and I have to constantly sort through the mess of seeds and bushes that I just don't care about. So I finally decided that it was time to make some big upgrades to the moss farm, and I made a whole new little segment above the existing one that purely makes bone meal. In fact, it makes so much bone meal that I had to siphon off some of the bone meal into a separate chest, and now I have a good source of bone meal in the world. After fixing up the moss farm, I gathered up a bunch of different leaves like birch, spruce, and mangrove. These will help with the variety and will come in handy later to really help spruce up the forest canopy. Next, I had to gather up all the materials for the hills and mountains for the terraforming, and luckily I had a lot of deep slate and just enough tuff stored away to speed up that process. But the one hanging over my head was blackstone. Blackstone's an interesting one because it's really not that hard to find in the nether, but it can be pretty annoying to gather, especially with all the lava and magma cubes everywhere. And luckily, my golden bartering farms already produce a respectable amount of blackstone, so I just had to perform a few upgrades to fully automate the gold farm, and within a few minutes, I already had all the blackstone I'd need. The rest of the resources were kind of scattered around the world like sand and bamboo, and oddly enough, seeds. The seeds will be really handy later on and will add a lot more foliage to the roof, and it's also spawn proof. Did you guys know that with the farmland? Pretty useful to know. And while I was smelting up some things, I also ended up building a little Allay XP farm near the Furnace, my super smelter. And I had a few hiccups, and that's okay, but we ended up making a really nice and really efficient Allay farm. It's kind of OP, ain't it? But with that, that is all of our resource gathering. This took me so many days of grinding, and I had to go through all those farm upgrades and everything just to make the moss a little bit more efficient and the blackstone. I'm glad I made those upgrades for, future projects and such. But we have multiple shulkers of moss, and this should be enough for our needs for this area. Now, if you're curious, we're going to be connecting up the moss over here all the way around and connecting it up with the moss over yonder. You can see there's a little bit of the glass lake over there and some mountain over here. So yeah, we're going to be doing the entirety of this open area here, and it will finally be fully surrounded by fully custom terrain, and you'll no longer see that ugly bedrock roof. Okay, so my vision for the terraforming in this area is to have some more height variety, because right now we're very flat out in this area. We even have a little hill right here, but I want to get rid of that hill and make it actually dip down instead. So I want to add some more height variety, and I think I want some rolling hills kind of leading up to some bigger mountains than these guys over yonder. Something else that I really want to include in the new terraforming here is we have our junction here right in the middle, and currently we have 3 different exits, or I guess 2 different exits for these tunnels, and they both utilize these big old long subway tunnels, and I kind of want to switch it up for one of these directions. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this one or this direction yet, but I want to have a nice crevasse, or a nice ravine that you travel through, and you kind of feel a little bit more integrated into the terrain as you're traveling through on the minecart instead of just going into a big old tunnel, and it gets a little bit boring there. So we're going to try to switch it up a little bit for the direction. I think maybe this one will be the coolest because we can kind of have a really cool framing with the terrain going around and all the trees and the Ferris wheel and all that. Ooh, I'm imagining it's getting really cool. So without further ado, let's get cracking on that terrain. It's a little bit brighter than I thought, but our terraforming is complete, and I think it looks so freaking awesome. I'm so happy with this. Oh my goodness. Let's get a nice little fly over the entire terrain out here, and we can see how much I've actually had to place. This is looking insane. I had to do this whole corner here, and obviously this entire section on this side has been completely empty for so long. But now it is filled with some terrain, some really nice, pretty slopes leading up there. I think it looks so much better than our previous terrain out over in this direction. You can see I've done a little bit of extra little re-terraforming around the area, kind of smoothing out some of these slopes going towards the nuclear facility over there. But this is looking very pretty, and like I said earlier, quite a lot brighter than I want it to be. Now you might be asking yourself, why the freak is there so many frog lights just all over the place, all over the wheat? And some of you keen-eye viewers, or maybe just smart Alex out there, might know what I'm doing here with these frog lights. Now, crops typically can only grow when there's actual light level there. And in the Nether, there is 0 light level everywhere. So normally crops can't grow without any light here. So we have all these frog lights giving them a little bit of light to grow. And what we're going to be doing after we're done with everything, our final step will be to go through and break all of these frog lights. And then we'll get a nice evenness along the entire, like floor bed of the forest and just the terrain around this area. So right now, it looks a little bit crazy, but I actually think it looks pretty good, and the wheat is looking fantastic. I think it's a nice little color pop compared to the very neutral, greens going around the area. And I kind of experimented with a few other crops, and I think wheat is our best option. There isn't really any green crop necessarily that will do what we want it to do, unfortunately, which is like to kind of act like grass or like some sort of tall grass. Because we got to mob-proof everything. Everything's covered in moss carpet, and, all the cool foliage blocks they don't prevent mobs from spawning, so we can't use them. And a few of you guys are going to suggest to make a mob switch as well, and I'm very much on the fence about making a mob switch, just because I still want, like, my farm to be fully functional, and I know I can, like, toggle the mob switch and such, but I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about it. Let me know what you guys think, and maybe if we end up making a mob switch, we can come through and give this place a whole new makeover with a lot more detail and, like, foliage options. So now we can officially say step 2 of our Nether Hub transformation is complete, and now it's time for step 3, which is our reforestation project, which is to build up a bunch of trees around this whole area here. And luckily I've gathered all of the leaves and most of the blocks for the trunks and everything, but I think I want to gather all of the resources that I'm going to need for the rest of this build. So it's going to take me a little bit of time to get into the trees, but luckily you guys at home don't have to struggle and craft up thousands of items. As you can see on the right side of the screen, I have a little material list on what I need to gather, and there's not much left. I just have to do a little bit of grinding and a little bit of AFKing too for those frog lights in the bottom right there. But just here's a nice little scroll through of our entire material list, and there's easily thousands of blocks that we need to gather, and lots of these like small quantity of blocks too. So this will be pretty annoying to gather all these, but we're pretty much there. We're practically ready to begin working on those trees. So I think we should jump straight into building those trees up. Let's get it. Now, normally when I make custom trees, I like to keep it simple and light on the resources, but recently I've been experimenting with my tree building, and I've been implementing more branches and detail into each individual tree. The trees I ended up making for this side of the Nether Hub are based off of trees you'd typically find in Eastern Europe, like spruce, pine, birch. Okay, not those ones. Yes, these ones. Now, despite the extra level of detail on my new tree style, these were quite easy to make since they typically have like a straight trunk and upward curling branches, but I did make a few that are a bit more wonky. Is it too much to ask from you guys to just sit here and appreciate this beautiful forest with me? Just for a moment, just one moment, please. Wow. These are easily the best custom trees I've ever made in my entire Minecraft career, and I hope I can do better over time, but these, I'm just so insanely proud of all these, and also all the stacks of fence gates that I had to craft. I'm glad they've gone to good use because these look fantastic. But I intentionally included 3 different types of trees in this entire forest. So there's one tree, this is like the fully grown, kind of the darker style of tree, and they got a lot of basalt and pale wood and acacia and deep slate and some spruce wood, and they all use these mangrove leaves for a little bit of a bit more of like a yellowish look to it, because the nether kind of makes everything look all yellow. Then we have a bit more of an in-between where it's a bit lighter on the tree, but we have you know, little hints of these darker spots kind of coming in. I'm imagining they're like different stages of the same tree, and then some of them are maybe a little bit different as trees as well, but they start off lighter and then they go darker as they age up. That's kind of my philosophy behind this. So yeah, we have 3 trees. We have the full block trees, we have the wall trees, and then we have fences as our smallest tree type. You know what? I kind of like this tree as a good example. Maybe it's a little bit hard to see, but right here at the bottom of the tree, at the trunk, it actually splits off into 2 different trees, and the split off tree here that's a lot smaller and a little bit more shallow is actually super light. We use a lot more sandstone and end stone. And then the darker tree on the left side here, which is way taller, we use a lot more andesite and diorite to kind of sell the idea that this one is maybe a little bit more mature, and this side one here is a little bit newer, a little bit younger. But yeah, just walking around inside this forest here, it is so beautiful, and I love all the different leaf types I use too. We use a lot of birch leaves, and I think a few of these trees use spruce ones. Yeah, these spruce trees. Then we have mangrove for the fully grown ones. Oh my goodness, I'm so insanely proud of how this has turned out, and I just want to say real quick, all of our wheat is fully grown, so we're almost ready to take out all these frog lights and finally get the real true feel of this place. But yes, we have now officially completed our reforestation steps. Now it's time to hop into step 4, which is to make the epic Ferris wheel. And that Ferris wheel is going to go right here in between the trees. You can very easily see where it's going to be slotted in, and it's going to look fantastic. I'm so excited for this to finally complement the whole Chernobyl theme. Okay, and also, you guys are gonna have to forgive me for my absolute mess of a shulker monster so far. I started out organized, and then I slowly moved over here, and then it was organized, and now it's very unorganized. It's all over the place now. It's getting absolutely atrocious, but these are all empty right here, which is good progress, right? All right, I think that's enough blabbering. Let's get into building that Ferris wheel. It's gonna go right behind my big fat head. So back when I began working on the Nether Hub project, I was heavily inspired from the real-life nuclear power plant Chernobyl, and a lot of the late Soviet-era architecture dubbed post-industrialism, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. The Nether roof already lends itself pretty nicely to this sort of eerie, liminal, and like abandoned atmosphere, and post-industrialism is all about abandonment and rundown buildings. I kept seeing this Ferris wheel that's located a few miles away from the meltdown site in the town of Pripyat while doing my research, and I absolutely fell in love with how much it contrasts with the theme of the Nether hub and post-industrialism. It's just perfect. The idea of an amusement park right next to a nuclear power plant is just so insanely, like, it just has such a crazy contrast. I had to include it in the Nether hub. Ooh, look how ominous the forest looks over there. Oh my goodness. The fog is absolutely popping off right now. All right, still a little bit of elytra parkour. Fly down, sweep up, down by the river, flow over. Oh, look at that reveal. Holy crap. Yup, our Ferris wheel is complete, and I am in love with how this turns out and how much it complements to the entire area. And just gives this little section here a little bit more purpose, a little bit more eye candy, you know, when you're walking by here. Instead of just a beautiful forest to look at, you have a little Ferris wheel nestled inside said forest. And I also got rid of all of the frog lights on the wheat because every single piece of wheat is fully grown up finally. And I am terrified of a single like piglin or zombie piglin or whatever skeleton spawning somewhere and just trampling my crops. I'll be so sad if they mess everything up. So I made a little backup just in case before I leave for vacation here. But man, look at this thing. I really wanted to go for a rundown look on this because the reference photos I was looking at are like more of the modern day version of this thing. And it looked like it was made entirely out of iron. So it has a lot of these reddish tones and a little bit of orange in there too. So I wanted to include most of that inside of the loop here. And also made a perfect circle. If you're curious how I made this thing, there is a beautiful video by Benjamin. Sorry, I said the wrong name. And they show you how to make a beautiful, perfect circle using signs, slabs, trapdoors. It's pretty complicated, but this looks really good as a perfect circle. I even added in all these like lines that connect up to each of the sections, and we have the cool carousels going all the way around, nice and yellow, nice and contrasty with the rest of the area, and also kind of blend in a little bit with the wheat. Kind of complements that whole kind of theming we have going on. But man, oh man, we are officially done with step 4, which is the epic Ferris wheel, and we can officially break all these signs. Goodbye. Goodbye. So in the future, I do want to continue to expand on the whole theme of the Ferris wheel, especially in this left corner here. On the right side, I think I might end up making some cool big old mountain out in the distance or something. Not quite sure on the mountain over there, but we'll figure that out over time. But over on this section, I definitely want to make a little bit of a circus, have like a cool little, circus entrance sign and a path leading all the way up towards this area. Maybe making a little circus tent over on that little cliff right over there. You can see it. Yeah, I think that would be really, really fun to have some sort of like amusement park circus kind of area here, some sort of entertainment. And obviously we'll make it very abandoned, but that'll be for the future because I am very out of time right now. Now, this little section right here, I've kept it lit up because I don't 100% know what I'm gonna be doing on this section here. You can see there's a little bit of an outline for a building here, and this is supposed to be some sort of train shed or a train warehouse, some sort of train storage. But I'm still kind of working out how I want these tracks to, kind of continue flowing and how they work, because obviously this is the main track that this cart is on, and it would continue to go through the mountain here, and I need to, make a whole tunnel for the actual mine carts here, and then figure out how this is going to continue going forward, and maybe how like this whole junction thing works. So there's still a little bit of logistics here, but obviously, we've made very, very big strides in our build in our Nether hub today, and I think it looks fantastic, and I'm so pleased with how this has turned out, and I'm thankful for you guys for sticking through the entire video, because this is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, make sure to get subscribed, and big shout out to all of the Barcer Pluses you see on the left side of your screen right now. All right, y'all, that's gonna do it. Bye.